G'day and welcome to another big edition of the Ballarat Football Netball League Senior Footy Show. All thanks to our friends at McDonald's. I'm joined by Tara Murray from the Star Weekly, and thanks so much for joining us again. You've got another Guernsey and another chance to look at what's happening this weekend. I
know. I think it's the third or fourth one I've got this season. So I was in the hot seat earlier on this seaon and now back in it again. And it always seems to coincide around the times I decide to go watch Ballarat Football League matches. So perfect timing.
Well, your face is in the video promo, so we've got to try and get you on board for that as well. I know you're charging us through the nose for that, so we've got to get some minutes out of you while we can. And the game that you are heading across to this weekend is where we will start. It's Bacchus Marsh and Sunbury Lions.
Look, I think before last week, if Sunbury had have got on the line, you would have had first and second and expecting a really good match. Obviously, the Sunbury Lions loss to Ballarat sort of dims that a little bit because it was sort of setting up as a really good match. But I think it'll still be a good one. You've got Bacchus Marsh has been playing some really good football at times this season. They destroyed Melton, who's up there on the ladder, and obviously they played well again for 3 quarters against Redan. Sunbury's been a little bit up and down since the bye. They had the 2-week bye. They've had a loss, win, loss. So whether they get back to a win, but we've seen obviously they did take down Darley earlier in the season. So if Bacchus Marsh aren't hit their straps, Sunbury can quite easily get over the line. Yeah,
and I guess you're right. It was Darley that took down Bacchus Marsh, but it was Sunbury Lions that took down Darley. So they've it's sort of a different form. But I still look at Bacchus Marsh and the form that they're in. You got Benny Spade, he's kicking goals. Jake Owen, who we touched on earlier in the week, he's been in great form. Their midfield starting to gel. Scotty Sherlock, outstanding captain. I really can't find a weakness in that team at the moment.
Look, I can't. And look, if you had said pre-season, I rated them as one of the top 2 sides. So, and look, they've made the last 2 grand finals. They lost a couple players pre-season, but then they've added players and they've probably got a little bit more depth than what they've had in the past. And that's the thing. You look at their forward line. They've got 3 really good options that are kicking goals. So you've got Aaron Willits, Ben Spate, and Jake Owen, all 3 very different players as well. And you've got to look. They've only played 7-8 games together, so they haven't played that many together. And they've connected and they've really clicked. And we're starting to see that on the scoreboard as well. So they're a very dangerous side. And for me, the clear premiership favourites at this time of the year.
And Bacchus Marsh, they've played well to get to grand finals over the last few years, but they probably had a restricted forward line. This year they've brought in Willits, they've brought in Owen, they've brought in Spate. The beauty is with 2 of those guys, you can throw Jake Owen down back and you can throw Spate in midfield and have Aaron Willits as still your standout forward. So at the end of the day, if things need to be changed, you can chuck all 3 of them forward to add more of a dynamic. Whereas I think last year they were probably a little bit one-dimensional with Maximo in that team, and he was an excitement machine, kicked plenty of goals for them. But to have those 3 guys come in and you're able to rotate at least 2 of those guys in other areas of the ground, I think that's amazing. I think every team would love to have that luxury.
Well, you look at when they won the premiership in 2016, they had Cam Richardson, Damien Cupido and Maximo. So you had the 3 options there, and on their day, you could have 1 kick 6 or 7, or you could have 3 kick 2 or 3, or even 4 or 5. So they've got a very similar lineup to what they did a couple of years ago when they won the premiership, and that was one area they did look to address in the pre-season. And it's not just those 3. They do have a couple of. They've got a few other guys that will chip up every single week with 1 or 2 goals. So they've got a lot of forward option depth and a lot of guys kicking goals every single week.
Sunbury Lions a chance here?
Look, you'd be hoping that a few of their players that missed last week are back in. That's probably the key for them. They are a chance if they're in the match. We've seen this season that they do win the close ones. They won a close one against Darley. They won a close one against Melton, and they won a close one against Melton South, which I got out to that one and could have quite easily lost. So we have seen when they are in the game, they are a very hard side to defeat. So if you can if they're still in the game at 3/4 time, they're a red hot chance.
Yeah, spot on there. I'll just put it a bit of a blanket statement at the moment. I don't think anyone can beat Bacchus Marsh at the moment, so it wouldn't matter who they faced. I think they are probably a 5-6 plus goal better side than anyone else in the competition at the moment.
Look, I think the side that can match with them is full of injuries and been a little bit inconsistent. So right now, obviously, that getting the wins in the board is important, but it's about doing this, having this same form come the pointy end of the season.
Spot on as we talk up Ballarat and Darley, and Ballarat going for 3 in a row, and fairly enough, they're at home again for the 3rd week in a row, and they've got a chance to keep that form going against Darley, who they've been good, but they haven't been outstanding this year.
They've had moments.
Yeah.
They've had moments. Yeah. And I think last time I spoke to Heath Scotland, they'd had a moment. Then Brian Graham kicked 7, but obviously he's out injured now, which does have an impact for them. But at that time, Jake Edwards kicked 7 in the reserves. So they've had injuries. They've had player unavailability. They've been pretty inconsistent with their lineup and pretty inconsistent on the park. They've had a bye, so whether or not that allows them to get a few players back, which could help them. But I expect them to build. They probably haven't had the off-season they had the season before. They probably haven't had the same. Last season they probably had a pretty stable lineup.
Yeah.
This season it's a little bit been up and down, but I still expect them to be there come pointy end of the season. Look, I think Darley probably needs to start winning. These are the matches Darley needs to win if they want a top 2 or 3 finish. And look, obviously Ballarat is a good opposition. Ballarat's shown the last 2 weeks that they can beat sides. Obviously the Sunbury Lions one is a good indication. Darley lost to Sunbury Lions earlier in the season, so you've got there. But so yeah, it's not going to be an easy contest for Darley. As we see, they lost to Sebastopol, so they lost to one of those lower sides towards the bottom of the table like Ballarat. So they have to be on their game. And
it was this fixture last year at probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think it was round 15 or something where these two did face off. Darley's form again, it fluctuated. They came out in the second half of this contest and put Ballarat away, and then from that point on, they won their way through the premiership. So if the Lightning can strike twice and we're going to see a bit of a turning point in this season, maybe this game could be the one for them.
It is, and obviously I expect them to start firing the next few weeks, and once we see their better side out on the park, they're going to be up there again.
Redan v Sebas.
This is an interesting one. Sebas is actually starting to find some real good form, and they're coming off a win against Melton South last week. Obviously, not the strongest opposition, but for Sebas, it's about getting those wins. If they would that make that 2 wins in a row for the first time in a very long time? They got up this week, and obviously they had the Darley win not long ago as well too. So they're starting to build that confidence, and they're starting to show that they're not the easy beats they once were. And obviously now they're playing Redan, who hasn't won a game themselves. So it's a position Sebas finds themselves. They haven't been in often. They are favourites. I think they're probably favourites last week, so they've been favourites 2 weeks in a row, and it's about just making sure that they do the things right and getting the wins they're expected to win.
And finals if they win this weekend, finals can be discussed.
Look, I don't know whether they will be discussing it as yet, but it's about just making sure they're getting those wins, and then they keep the pressure on, and they find themselves with 2-3 weeks to go, they're still in the finals mix. Yeah, red hot, go for it, but I don't know whether they'll be quite talking about finals quite yet.
So your tip for this one?
Look, I think Sebas, Redan has struggled at times. They showed good signs in the final quarter against Bacchus Marsh, but then haven't been able to play for 4 quarters.
I'll agree with you on that one there. North Ballarat City and Lake Windaree. This is massive for the Lakers.
Look, obviously we've got Bacchus Marsh, Sunbury, the game of the round, but this one could quite easily be as well. You've got 2 sides that are looking for top 6 spots. They had different results on the weekend. Lake Windaree came from behind, obviously, to beat Melton, and North Ballarat City fell short against East Point. So they were playing other sides that were around the finals mix, and this is another one of those matches of 2 sides that looking to get the win to try and cement their spots there. So I think it'll be quite interesting one. North Ballarat City probably didn't have the week thereafter. As you said, Will Young was kept pretty quiet up forward, so you wouldn't expect him to be kept quiet for two games in a row, and if he can fire, that really helps North Ballarat.
I think this is the most important game of the season for Lake Windaree because of the win-loss record that they've had in recent times. They need to go back-to-back wins here. If they can't do it, if they can't take down City this weekend, then that's going to be very, very tough on them, because as we discussed earlier, it's about building that momentum, and North Ballarat City, they'll be keen to bounce back from that loss. So Lakers will have to play their absolute best.
It is, and they can't let North Ballarat City get off to a good start. They did it last week, but you can't let that 2 weeks in a row. So, no, definitely a vital match for Lake Windaree, and they need to start winning consecutive matches.
Your tip?
Look, I will go North Ballarat City, but yeah, it could quite easily go either way.
Yeah, I'm with you, North Ballarat City on that one there. In the final game, we've got Melton South and East Point, the new Heath Pritchard era down at South. Can they cause the upset?
Look, I don't think they will.
Yep.
East Point has been good, and look, they knocked off Ballarat quite convincingly in round 1, but all the rest of the matches have been that 4 to 5 goal margin. So if Melton South can push them to that, it's probably been a bit more competitive than what they have been in recent weeks. So look, we have seen probably their best performance against one of those top sides did come against Sunbury Lions, and the Panthers could have quite easily won that one. So they play with that same intensity, but kick straighter and make the most of their opportunities, they can push East Point, but I think East Point will be too strong.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one there. I think East Point, they probably need to go out and make a little bit of a statement as well, because they're playing against a side who's yet to taste victory this year, and if they want to make a play for the top 4, top 3, this is their game to do it. They just look at the ladder position and try and get their best forwards all firing up and pushing away to a big win.
Exactly, and they probably that percentage boost as well, because they haven't had that big win. Well, they did have round 1. They've only had 1, but they're not getting that percentage boost. You probably need to boost that percentage a little bit, and here's a perfect opportunity for them. Spot
on there. Tara, thanks so much for jumping in the hot seat this week. No doubt everyone would have enjoyed your comments and feedback. I know you're keen to get along to a big game this weekend. Which game are you heading to again?
Back Smash Sunbury.
Going to be an absolute cracker at that one. And all thanks to our friends at McDonald's. Tara, thanks so much for joining us, and we might be able to catch up with you a bit later on in the year.
Thanks for having me.